Hey, so today I want to introduce you to an amazing attorney, has worked with us for a long time now, and we have a special announcement for you today. Let's talk about the badass of all badass attorneys over here. We got Jesus Velasquez.
What's going on, everyone?
Hey, so, a huge announcement to the world. If you didn't know, crowdfunding lawyers, we've been doing real estate deals coast to coast for quite a while now. We really haven't rolled it out very loudly. And so this has been kind of a real big announcement here that we are handling the real estate transactions in the commercial space, in the larger developments, and very often in multifamily, those apartment complexes. And this guy over here, Jesus, started helping with my other law firm, Dodson Legal Group, my namesake. And we were slow to start merging things together and transactions together. So today is literally a big announcement day to introduce you to this guy who is taking over as the managing attorney of our real estate operations. So Jesus, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for the warm welcome, Nate. Appreciate it.
Totally. Well, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your background, and
Sure.
It's been a journey to get you here.
Absolutely. So, I'm a native of the DFW area. I went to undergrad here at UNT, eventually found my way to go to law school at SMU. Starting out of law school, I came out of school, and during law school as well, I worked for Dickey's Barbecue Restaurants. I was a corporate counsel coming out of law school.
And if you don't know, Dickey's is like a fast food barbecue because in Texas, it's all barbecue throughout the state. I don't know. Are they outside of Texas too?
Yeah, no, they're
Okay.
probably like in most other states here in the U.S., the contiguous U.S., I should say. So,
I got to say, I didn't see much in California.
yeah, they do have some. With things are going now, I don't know if they're as prominent as they used to be out in California, but nonetheless, I did some time there, and I eventually found my way here with the folks at Dodson Legal Group. It's been a great adventure. I've been with you now, moving on 3 years now. Crazy.
Wow.
Time flies, but
Time really flies.
yeah, it's been a great adventure, and happy to dive into what I do, kind of my day to day.
When you got started with Dodson Legal Group, were we in these offices or were we in other offices?
We started when I came here. We had the office right next to the court center here in Denton County.
Okay, so we're just across the street.
Yeah. And then
So just so that you understand, our main office right now is in Denton, Texas, which is this little town just north of Dallas. The reason why I'm here is my wife, Jasmine, is the president of the Denton County Bar, loves the community, loves the people here. So even though I had an office in Dallas, over the past few years, I've really moved everything up here. Glad to know that you have. That's why Jasmine recommended you, because she started at UNT.
That's right.
Said, "Oh, we've got a local board. Bring them in."
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess you found a good fit for me because it's been working out. So
I love it. Well, and really what always impressed me about you is you had our same guiding light of it's always about the client experience.
Absolutely.
And making sure that they're amazingly taken care of, and you frankly have the best attitude out of any attorney I've ever met.
that's what I like to hear.
So, well, it's also exactly why we've put you in that position of the other real estate attorneys are answering to you. You're the main guy when it comes to getting the deals closed.
Absolutely.
Maybe you can just walk us through. You get a call from a client, hey, we got our LOI accepted. It's for an apartment complex,
Sure.
wherever, to help out your clients. What's the next step after hearing we got an LOI?
So typically, once I'm provided the LOI, clients oftentimes want me to take a look and advise on the terms. They may ask, hey, do you think this 60-day closing timeline is suitable given the transaction? And I'll advise accordingly. Sometimes it may be worthwhile. Sometimes you may want some additional closing extension options, just to give you a brief example of the kind of issues that come across my desk at times. So, we get the LOI, we advise accordingly, and once the LOI has been signed, or if the parties have come to a conclusion, then
I actually want to be clear on this.
Sure.
So we're often getting involved before the LOI is signed to actually provide the advice on the LOI.
Absolutely.
As well.
Just depends on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes it'll come in before the LOI has been drafted. Sometimes it'll come in after, sometimes in between. But typically, oftentimes, right, we start around the LOI negotiation phase. We kind of chime in as needed and advise accordingly depending on the transaction. So
perfect. So we can go with the best time to call this guy is yesterday. The second best is today. The third best is when you're actually just thinking about getting a property under contract.
Yeah, just to kind of chime in, I guess, a little bit more on the kind of deals that I've done. I've done everything from deals for raw land up to multifamily properties worth in excess of $120 million and everything in between. I've done retail spaces. I've done office space. I've done, like Nate mentioned, multifamily properties is probably my bread and butter, but we handle it all.
I love hearing you say you've done all these things, because I know that you didn't do much of it until you started really working with us. But just kind of the scope, and thank you for kind of expanding on all the different types of deals that
Sure.
we work with and focus on. If you said there were more of this than anything, would it be multifamily?
As of now, yes. It seems like the majority of the properties that I've worked with recently have absolutely been multifamily communities. Throughout Texas, sometimes out of state, we engage local counsel as needed. But yeah, I think that's safe to say.
And I think that's important, and why we're able to offer kind of the coast-to-coast closings is because even though Jesus and his team are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, we're always bringing in a local counsel for the legal opinions or for local law reviews. So we always have somebody local involved, even though this is the guy that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting to make it all happen. Okay, the LOI has been signed. Talk a little bit about kind of the contracting. We're going to the purchase agreement, the
Sure.
PSA. How does that generally work out? Is it the buyer or the seller that's providing the draft, and how does kind of the going back and forth work?
Sure. So we represent both buyers and sellers, and just depending on the transaction, sometimes the PSA is provided by, I should say the draft PSA is provided by the broker. Sometimes it's the attorney representing the seller who representing the buyer. Sometimes it's us that initiate the PSA negotiation process using our forms, and we cater the transactions accordingly. Sometimes, especially as of recently, you get into these battles with non-refundable earnest money. People want the money to go hard. And
nowadays, I know that in the recent past, non-refundable earnest money was really normal.
sure.
Are we seeing any changes in the market?
I am. So as of recently, I would say towards the tail end of 2022, we've been seeing a change to kind of favor the buyers a bit more. Sellers are starting to see buyers getting into issues with financing. So sellers oftentimes trying to make the deal a little bit sweeter, right? I've seen the introduction finance contingencies back included in PSAs as of recently, which is refreshing to see and obviously favors buyers. So yeah, just kind of, depending on the time, the ebbs and flows of what's going on in the market, the negotiation states for the PSAs can vary from transaction to transaction, which obviously we tailor our PSA too. So
And PSA purchase and sale
yes,
agreement.
absolutely.
Lovingly known as the PSA. If you had to say most often, are you seeing the first draft, because this is one of the first things people think about,
Sure.
coming from the seller side, the buyer side, or just some broker in the middle?
Most oftentimes it's the broker. If it's not the broker, it's the seller's attorney. And then as a last resort, sometimes the buyer's attorney drafts it. But like I said, it just depends on the nature of the transaction and kind of.
If you had to say there's one area that really ends up being a deal breaker and you're seeing transactions fall through with the purchase and sale agreement right now in the market, because it's always changing, what do you think that kind of deal breaker situation has been lately?
As of recently, I think it's been these contingencies. If there's not some sort of financing contingency in place, buyers want to be able to back out during the initial inspection period and get their earnest money back. And I think that's where I've been seeing a lot of recent friction on these deals, and unfortunately them kind of not going through is because of these contingencies. Especially nowadays, buyers kind of want some assurance that, hey, I can go into the deal and kind of do my own due diligence, and if the property doesn't look as favorable as I initially thought. Hey, I want the ability to back out and get my earnest money back, right? And that's usually where I see kind of the friction and deals kind of fall through, is just people negotiating for those contingencies that sometimes sellers are amenable to, sometimes they're not. And depending on the buyer's risk for appetite, sometimes they move forward with it, sometimes they don't.
So let's talk about something that I'm painfully aware is going on, which is the lenders.
Sure.
Changing terms, backing out of conditional commitments. What are you seeing happening really with the lenders right now in the real estate market?
So as of now, lenders are unfortunately changing loan terms up almost until prior to closing, and oftentimes it's when the buyer doesn't anticipate it. So, when lenders change their terms, it kind of messes with the anticipated returns of the buyer. So the loan terms change enough to an extent that it just doesn't make the deal as favorable to the buyer. I mean, they have no other option but to back out. They don't want to lose any more money than they've already lost, right? Oftentimes in that event, I mean, they're fine with just losing their earnest money and just walking away, because they're, depending on the loan term, the lender decides to change them, the buyers will back out and just cut their losses there. So
if there's a loan contingency and initially a lender has a loan offer that meets the contingency, great. Now the contingency goes away, but then the lender comes back and retrades, change terms, increases the interest rates, and all of a sudden it doesn't meet the loan contingency. In those cases, what are you seeing happening? Really just try to save the deal.
In those instances, I often see buyers going back to the negotiating table, right? They're trying to get a retrade on the purchase price. They're having to meet with brokers and try to work something out with the seller, right? Hey, I've been giving these loan terms, and it necessitates the need for the buyers sometimes to go back to the negotiating table with the seller and ask for a retrade at times.
And just to be clear, a retrade means you're renegotiating, but if you try to renegotiate, you're running the risk that the seller just says no.
Absolutely.
And then you're fighting over the earnest money all over again.
Absolutely.
In terms of how many deals you're seeing now, like what percentage, if you can even generalize, are getting into a situation where retrades become necessary?
Right, so it's the percentages, right? So if I had to pin it down to a percentage of deals falling through in those instances, I would probably say 4 out of 10 deals, which is more than usual. Yeah. I've seen more success recently with people assuming loans and people that just have cash already to provide ready in their bank accounts, just willing to just pay money up front without a lender involved. So those are by far the deals that I see that are most successful in going through their closing, is people either assuming terms now and either just paying straight cash for the deal and avoiding the headache of a lender.
Something that you just brought up, if you can find opportunities where the loans are assumable, you can be getting much better terms right now because of the interest rates has been going up. But I actually know some of these loans that they're paying a reasonable fee to the current bank to be able to assume the loans that have been there. It's like a win-win-win all the way around for the seller, buyer, and the bank.
Absolutely.
So have definitely seen that being a great thing.
Absolutely.
In terms of kind of how many deals we've been working on, guesstimate. I know it can't be exact.
Sure.
But how many of these deals did we do in 2022?
In 2022, I would say I had at least a dozen deals going on at any given time, with about probably a dozen or so each month. What's 12 times 12? 144, right?
We do a lot of real estate.
Absolutely.
And we're here for you, and we're expanding the team, kind of everything that we're doing. So really just want to make a point that if you got some real estate deals, we're not being geographically limited. And this is a great guy to work with. So definitely reach out to us. Let me introduce you to Jesus. He'll tell you all about the amazingness of the team. And it's not just this guy doing it. The only way we're maintaining this is by building that team of amazing attorneys to support your business and support your deals. Any final thoughts that you'd like to let These are your clients, just your clients that you don't know yet. If you're able to communicate to the people that will someday work with you, what would you tell them today?
I would tell them that I'm here and I'm happy to help. I love what I do. It's been a great ride. And like I said, aside from the commercial real estate transactions that I do, I often do private securities offerings in conjunction with these real estate acquisitions. And I help a lot of clients with general business matters. You know, sometimes people just want to form an LLC. Oftentimes people are looking at buying like a restaurant or a car wash, to kind of give a few examples. And whatever the case may be, I'm happy to help, and I'm here to, I'm available and happy to help as needed. So,
well, I'm not surprised to hear you say you've done nearly 150 deals last year. Just talking to my partner, Richard Robinette, he said we've got like 89 open transactions right now.
That sounds about right.
And that's kind of with the real estate, with the securities, with the contract law, just kind of with everything. I think we easily surpassed the 250 transactions last year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's safe to say. And we're constantly growing, and the work just keeps on coming, fortunately. So.
He may hate that part, but we definitely appreciate him being here. And Jesus, thank you so much for giving a little introduction to yourself in the way that we can continue to help all of you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.